Thank you to everyone who's joining. We'll just wait for about 30 seconds to let more of you in. It's great to see so many people joining today. Okay, I can see we have quite a few people in, so we'll get started while some more are joining. We start with some housekeeping anyway, so they're not going to miss all the meaty content, but welcome to our webinar today on how to earn more with dynamic pricing. It's a very hot topic in the short-term rentals industry, and we've got some great people to take you through it today. Just to tell you who's on the call. So I'm Andrew Martin, co-founder and CEO at Your.Rentals. Joining me today is Atul Mohan from Price Labs. Hi, Atul.
Hello. Hey, Andrew. Hey, everyone.
Great, and we'll hear more about you and Price Labs in a minute. And also joining us is Sandra Janicki from Blue Ocean Rentals, the founder and CEO. Welcome, Sandra.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, so today we're just going to cover quite a lot of content, so we will move through this fairly quickly. Just to let you know, we'll be recording this, and each of you who's joined today or registered will receive a link in the coming days where you can replay it if there's bits that you want to look into. We'll start with a quick introduction of Your.Rentals, Blue Ocean Rentals, and Price Labs. We're going to have a look straight away at the outlook for summer 2025 in Europe. What can we see happening in the markets? Then we'll also dig a little bit into the supply and demand, which is also impacting what you might be seeing in your markets. We've done a very recent study, hot off the press, into the performance of dynamic pricing for a big chunk of our customers using the Your.Rentals platform. We're going to share the results with you. And then we'll do a little Q&A with Sandra, who's been using dynamic pricing for almost a year now and has some really interesting insights and reflections into how it's helping her in her business. And we'll do a bit of a recap towards the end of why dynamic pricing is essential, just to give you the pointers as to why you should be using it if you're not. And for those who are using Your.Rentals, really quick, how to set up dynamic pricing in Your.Rentals. So you can get started. And during the webinar, we'll be taking questions. You'll see in the Zoom controls a Q&A section. So if you've got a question already now or during, just post it in the Q&A and one of our moderators will queue it so that at the end we can actually go through and answer some of those questions for you. And we will, as I said, make the recording available next week, and it will also be with Spanish, Italian, French, and Greek subtitles for those who maybe find it a bit hard to follow my English at such a high pace. So you will get a copy of it afterwards as well. All right, so just really quickly, for those of you who are not using Your.Rentals today, we're a one-stop solution for short-term rentals hosts and property managers. We give you a single login to manage your whole business. It means you don't need to use any other softwares, and you don't even need to have host accounts in the channels that we connect you to. So with our solution, you can list on more than 50 different channels from the single Your.Rentals login. And you get included in the platform features like dynamic pricing. We'll give you a look at that today. Guest registration in some markets where that's required, damage insurance, and a whole lot more, all from one login. So let's just have a quick look and meet Sandra from Blue Ocean Rentals. Welcome, Sandra. Could you give us a little intro into your fantastic little company that you've been building?
Yes, absolutely. So we started Blue Ocean Rentals in late 2023 on Northern Cyprus. Some of you might know that Cyprus is two parts, the Greek side and the Turkish side. And by coincidence, we happened to be on the Turkish side where we inherited our own apartment and started to rent out first our own apartment and then a few others of friends and others' friends. And in the end, it was more than just a hobby. So we started to we started with Blue Ocean Rentals and have now 48 villas and apartments in this Turkish part of Cyprus. We have grown really, really quick. I think that's mostly because of the excellent service we got from Your.Rentals. This one shop, one stop makes it really easy for us to get up new listings as quick as possible. Northern Cyprus doesn't even have addresses, so it's quite a challenge to just put up one single listing without an address. Those of you who have tried to put on something on Booking.com and Airbnb know how important it is to actually get the right coordinates for each property. So we have grown very, very quick and are now looking into expanding into other markets instead and let our employees take over on or in Cyprus.
Fantastic. And we'll hear a bit more from you later. We've got a bunch of questions we're going to pose to Sandra. So those of you who are property managers as well and wondering how dynamic pricing helps or maybe causes more problems in your business, you'll hear from Sandra a bit later. All right. And then Atul, can you give us the introduction to Price Labs? I'm sure most people know who you are, but it's always good to hear it from the source.
Yep, absolutely. So I'll give a quick introduction to the company and then I'll get a little bit into the product and how it works. So really quickly about Price Labs, we started back in 2014. Yeah, we're currently managing pricing over 400,000, about 500,000 properties on a daily basis now. And we do pricing for short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, serviced apartments, all of these. So we're a complete revenue management and dynamic pricing solution. And yeah, we're present in almost every country. Going forward, we can, we work with about 50,000 customers worldwide. So all over the world, be it Europe, US, Asia, uh, Australia, all over, we have large customers as well as small hosts using us. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why Price Labs make sense for Your.Rentals users. So what we're trying to do at the end of the day here is make sure you get the best return on your investments, right? For every property that you manage, we want to try and maximize your revenue. So we use data and the technology that we have today to predict how the future is going to be, sort of use the current data and come up with recommendations for future dates. And we want to help you automate the revenue strategy so that you don't have to go through so many tasks regularly, changing things, changing prices, setting up different events, things like that. And again, since Your.Rentals is a one-stop solution, we have added Price Labs inside Your.Rentals itself so that it's really easy for you to activate and use.
Fantastic. We'll have a look at that a bit later, Atul.
Yep. All right. So how does dynamic pricing really work?
Is it just me or did Atul freeze?
I think he froze.
Okay. Sorry,
Hey,
there's a little technical glitch. He's back, I think.
yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes.
can. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, yeah, there was a small issue here, but yeah, I'll go ahead. So to talk about how exactly it works, first, we scrape data from multiple sources, right? So we get data from Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com. Key Data is a third-party provider who's partners with us, and we have our own internal events and holidays database. So with all of this data, we are able to understand for every listing for every region what is what the future occupancies and future prices look like. So we use all of this data, clean it up, remove blocks, duplicate listings, all of these, so that we have really good data. Then the pricing recommendations will come up from the algorithm based on this data. And then you set your own minimum price, maximum price, and you can edit your base price as well within your rentals. And on a daily basis, all the pricing updates are getting sent from your rentals to all of the booking channels. So yeah, all of your OTAs, all of the prices stay updated.
Fantastic.
All right. And yeah, a little bit about what factors we use to come up with these recommended prices. So we start from the base price, and this is something that you can choose inside your rentals. Now, once we have the base price, we have a recommended base price as well for you as you start off, and then all of these factors are used. So we have the seasonality, what's the high season in your area, low season, shoulder season. So we automatically adjust the price for this. Day of the week, so weekends, weekdays, what's the difference in demand between these? Then lead time. Are you getting a booking that's 3 months in advance, 1 month in advance, or towards the last minute, right? Then, as I said, we look at the neighborhood demand. We'll talk a little bit about how we understand this neighborhood demand as well. But yeah, we use the neighborhood demand. Your internal occupancy as well, because that's really important. Your struggling listings would get sort of discounts automatically applied, whereas the listings which are running at higher occupancies would get higher prices. And really important, we detect events, local events in your area, holidays, local holidays, and then we adjust the pricing for those automatically.
And one thing that I find sort of important for people to think about with dynamic pricing is that it's about maximizing your revenue over the full year, right? So it's playing this trade-off between occupancy and the rates that you're able to get. So if you only want a few bookings but only high price bookings, it's probably not the right solution to you. It's about, like you said before, maximize the return on the asset that you either own and manage yourself or you're managing for someone else.
Mm.
Fantastic. And some nice charts, Atul.
Yeah. So how exactly are we coming up with these pricing recommendations? Is for every listing, because we have precise coordinates that your rentals is sharing with us, we're able to generate a micro market of about 350 similar sized nearby listings. And then we use this micro market to understand what is the future occupancy in your particular neighborhood and understand the demand for the future. And based on that demand, we're able to say, should we go up from your base price, or if demand is low, maybe we should go below your base price so that it's priced at the right price for the right time, and then you end up getting the best bookings.
Yeah, and the nice thing is you don't even need to understand all of that. I mean, many people are curious and want to, but I think you'll see later that it's something that you can build some trust that it's working for you, and then you actually don't need to think about a lot of the metrics that you guys are analyzing.
Mm.
All right, but let's dig into some data here. So we asked Atul to tell us how is the summer period looking. I know it's coming up for most of you. And you're interested to know, okay, am I performing on par with my market or do I need to change something up? So let's dig into that.
Yep. So basically, what we are seeing here is we've just split it into the four regions of Europe, right? We're talking about Eastern, Southern, Western Europe, and Northern Europe. And how are these markets pacing for summer compared to last year, right? So what we can see is that Eastern Europe and Southern Europe are pacing ahead for summer. So it's currently at about 1.3% ahead of last year for Eastern Europe, Southern Europe about 1%, and Western and Northern Europe are slightly pacing behind, right? Now, at these levels, this even a 1% change does actually mean something because
Hmm.
when we end up completing summer, let's say we go through the months of June, July, August, that 1% gap right now ends up being a bigger gap of maybe 5% or something, 10%. It could even be that high. So the occupancy differences can make a big difference. And as we get closer to the date, if you're using dynamic pricing, we will automatically be adjusting the rates as it gets closer to the date, and we can understand the pacing better as well.
Yeah, and these are very broad regions, but we want to cover for people joining the call from everywhere. And then we've dug into some of the let's say markets where we have a lot more users in your rentals.
Yep. So we looked at it for each country, and when we were looking at it, we saw that again, the summer pacing for certain countries is far ahead. So Spain, Cyprus, Greece, all are pacing ahead of last year, which means the demand is quite strong for summer. And I looked at some of this data. A little bit more in detail, and I noticed that August is coming out as a really strong month for all of the markets that are pacing ahead, and even the markets like France, UK, Italy, which are not as far ahead. So France and UK are slightly ahead, 0.3% compared to last year. Italy and the region of Scandinavia are pretty much on par with last year. And Netherlands and Croatia are pacing slightly behind at this time, right? But the interesting thing was even for the markets that are pacing on par or behind par, the August month is still looking strong. It's
Mhm.
as good as last year, or in some cases, even better than last year. So, interestingly, Netherlands is pacing behind overall for summer, but August is still pacing 2% ahead.
Mhm. That's super interesting. With the August period as well. We talked a little bit. I'll put you on the spot here, but for the shoulder season, I mean, there has been some stuff written about slightly off peak the shoulder September October period. Is that also pacing ahead, or is it looking weaker this year, just in general?
As of now, most of the countries, it is looking on par or slightly weaker. Again, we'll get better trends once we're into summer and we're getting closer to the booking window of September, October. But yeah,
Yeah.
there seems to be a trend of more people booking during the peak months, and that is slightly reducing the occupancies in the shoulder months compared to last year. So
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, we really need to try and maximize revenue during the peak months so that even if there is a slight hit after, we're making up for it.
Fantastic. All right, some great, very specific and fresh data there. And I think this is also interesting, the supply-demand growth gaps, which will tell you why some of those countries maybe are pacing a bit behind.
Yep. Absolutely. So what we can see here is we're looking at the supply, how listings have grown in the past year. And we're also looking at how demand has grown, right? How many booked nights have happened in these markets and how that has grown in the past year. So what we see is that there is steady supply growth in most countries, but again, in almost all countries, the demand growth is better than the supply growth, right? It's growing faster. So it's still a good place to invest and run short-term rentals because, yeah, demand is clearly outpacing supply.
Mhm. However, we saw on the last
Except,
one,
yeah,
yes, exactly.
except for Netherlands, where supply seems to be growing faster than demand, and that also kind of showed up in the previous graph where we see that it's not pacing as well for summer. I think that
Mhm.
makes sense. If there are a lot of listings in the market, all the listings are going to find it a little tougher to get bookings.
Yeah, understood. All right, but thanks so much for sharing it all. That's golden knowledge. If your country wasn't there, we
Yeah.
apologize, but we tried to cover some of the bigger markets. All right, I will take over for a little bit. So we've been working with Price Labs integrated inside Your.Rentals for about a year now. And of course, the question we get asked by our customers and platform users is, does it work? So we've been spending quite a lot of time building a model to figure that out. And this is the second version of this report. There was another one published in December, but we've updated it just for the webinar here. So what we did is we picked a sample of listings that are in the Your.Rentals platform. They must have used dynamic pricing with Price Labs for more than 30 days to qualify. They should have all the OTA channels that we support in Your.Rentals on. And they should also have been online for the same period the previous year, but with their own manual pricing. Um, we also filtered out some markets that were not core, and we came up with 541 listings from 34 countries matching that criteria. And I'll tell you about the comparison period. So if they enabled dynamic pricing on 4th of September last year, then we counted all the booking performance until a few days ago, and that's a 253 days period. And we compare that to exactly the same period, but the year before when they were using manual pricing. So we want to remove factors like seasonality and other things from the equation. And the average comparison period across all these listings that met the sample criteria was 237 days. So not quite a full year, but a really good sample. And then we looked at the metrics that you see here, comparing how did it look with the manual pricing versus with dynamic pricing. So let's have a look at what it showed us. The first metric is gross bookings per unit. We're looking at gross bookings here because there's a lot of recent months there where bookings have not checked in yet. So we're looking at the generation of bookings at the gross level. With the manual pricing period, you can see 27 bookings per unit, and with dynamic pricing, it grew to 39, so 46% change. And then we looked at the revenue side of things. So what was the gross booked revenue per unit? And as you can see here, a 36% increase in the dynamic pricing period. Remember, this is not one specific listing. This is a broad sample of different types of properties in different markets. We then looked at the gross nights booked, and we saw a similar trend, 37% increase with dynamic pricing. And then importantly, why are we getting such an increase? Well, we had some theories here and we're not 100% correct, but average booking value was slightly down. But remember, there's a lot more revenue generated over the period. The length of stay was a little bit shorter, so 4.2 versus 4.0 nights. So perhaps we're better at filling date gaps with shorter bookings as well. And the ADR, this was one of our hypotheses, was that ADR would come down quite a lot, but actually it was more or less the same. So I found that super interesting. Still trying to understand why that is, but people were taking more or less the same rate per night, but in different booking patterns. And the average lead time, or the booking window, as some people call it, shortened a bit, so 11% shorter. So on average, bookings were created 70 days before check-in, whereas before it was 79. I think when we have a full year of data, this will grow a bit shorter, since we're counting this sort of early booker summer period in Q1 this year, and we're not yet seeing a lot of the last minute summer bookings. So I'd expect that one to grow a bit shorter over time. And this one we didn't do in the first study, but now we have a lot more data. We had a better base to calculate it. Listen to this, because I think this is really important. The cancellation rate, so cancelled by guest, was 20% less for the dynamic pricing bookings. So your gross turnover is higher, and fewer of the bookings are actually going to end up being cancelled. So that multiplies into more revenue, more net revenue for you. This is the data we've got. We think it's pretty exciting. We know that the customers using dynamic pricing are, in general, very happy with it, and this is the proof of the pudding. All right, moving on. I think we're doing pretty well for time. So if you've got questions that we haven't answered yet, please post them in the Q&A, and we should get some good time to answer those at the end. But we wanted to turn to Sandra, who is probably, like many of you that have joined the webinar, property manager. You heard a bit about Blue Ocean Rentals before. So we'd just like to maybe pose some questions to you, Sandra. Atul, you can kick off if you like.
All right.
Perfect. Hey, Sandra. So, yeah, I think I want to get started with something fairly basic. I want to,
That's
you've been
good.
using price labs for a while now. So, what kind of effect have you noticed in your occupancy rates and your revenue after you've started using it?
We have used dynamic pricing for almost a year now. We started directly when Your.Rentals started with it. And what we can see, it was, first of all, it was easier for us to grow our company quicker, because it was much easier to upload more properties, handle more calendars. You only have to put in the price once. You don't have to change it all the time. So that was the biggest change. It made it possible for us to grow really, really quick.
Yep.
But the other thing is that we got more bookings, shorter bookings. Northern Cyprus is one of the emerging markets in the Mediterranean. Lots of people have bought properties there. They have been promised high return of investment without actually. It's not always the way that salespeople actually tell them the truth. So they say, "Oh, you can make £200 per night, and you will get this and this." And we have found out that with dynamic pricing, we can get them as well, much more bookings, but maybe not always the bookings that they expected from us. Maybe not always the prices that they wanted from the start. But it has helped us to create more bookings, and now we are filling most of our properties. We have an occupancy rate of around 75%.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting, even though not everyone is seeing that all the time. But when we started off, we did everything manually. Each calendar had to be checked every week. And if you have over 10, 20 properties, it starts to get complicated.
Yeah.
Mm.
Amazing. That actually brings me to my next question, which is how were you doing things before, and your pricing strategy, your way of doing things, how has that changed after you've started using dynamic pricing?
Since we started with our own apartment first, and then took over or helped other property owners with their apartments, and then later on villas, we got quite a good gut feeling. So we had a good idea of what the prices should be, or what we think it would be worth. And we sat down and talked to most of the owners, and we had a strategy call, and they had lots of ideas. But what we didn't see is that, the problem was that we're not always, let's say, data-driven decisions. It was more like, oh, we think we would like to have at least this, but we would like to make some money as well. So let's put it up another 30%. So we got bookings, of course we did, but not as many. We had lots of holes in the calendars. 1 week there and then nothing, and then another 2 weeks, but all these days in between were empty. So I think that was kind of the biggest difference when we started to use dynamic pricing. That we got more bookings, frequent bookings, coming in like 2 or 3 days prior to arrival as well. That is something that has not happened before. So the lead time has gone down as well.
Amazing. And just one more question I want to know is, what would you say is the time savings that you've been able to achieve? You know, has it freed up time for you? Have you been able to focus on other things?
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, we have grown from our own apartment in 2023 to 50 properties now. We have started to turn down new, so we don't onboard any new properties right now during high season. We could. We just think that we should be stable right now and survive high season, do a really good service, and then continue to onboard new. But we have much more time to to do what we should do. Advertise really good quality listings. We have time to put more time into that. Write good texts, make sure that each listing is updated all the time. We don't, of course, we still check the prices, but we don't check them more than once a month, or if the owner has any issues or questions. So we completely rely on that this dynamic pricing is doing what it's supposed to do, give us the best prices for each single day. So we have to take time, definitely. We could grow more if we would want to right now.
So you've kind of built a trust that it is working, would you say?
Yes, definitely. It is working. But of course, like I said, there are some challenges if you have a new tool and you have owners who are maybe not completely feel that they get what they wanted. They don't rely on data. They are not the digital. Northern Cyprus is very, well, let's say 20 years back when it comes to digital solutions. So for them, it is more like, oh, why should we rely on this data? I want £200. Well, but for £200, maybe you won't get any bookings. So that's always expectation management has been the biggest challenge, but we are getting more bookings than all of the other competitors in the market.
And you have both apartments which you started off with, and you have some fantastic, sometimes very good luxury villas as well. Do you see any difference between how the dynamic pricing is pricing each category or different locations?
Yes, I think so. Villas are more, I think when I look or go through the prices that we have for villas, they are more stable. Dynamic pricing is not doing so many changes. It can be £2 or £3 here and there, but it's usually more like a flat rate. Versus having apartments where, if you understand, Northern Cyprus is growing so much, so they have lots of construction projects. Many apartment areas look exactly the same. It's copy-paste. Small studios to 1 or 2 bedroom apartments, they are almost identical. There, the prices, of course, are getting lower. Dynamic pricing is comparing data, like you told us, Asul. And if you then have 50, or let's say you have 25 apartments in a radius of 10 kilometers, and they all are almost the same, the prices get lower. But they still get bookings. There, it's very depending on good reviews and doing some extra discounts and stuff like that. But I think it's really tough for the owners to see that you bought an apartment that you, of course, think is amazing and it's really nice, but it's not something special, so you don't get the special price. The villas, on the other hand, get fewer bookings, but to higher prices, and they don't change that much. So they can be still the same price in August as in October, because they still are seen as more high value properties.
Mhm. And you mentioned before, Sandra, that you think you have a feeling, or maybe you have something to prove it, that your properties do better than your local competitors. Like, can you tell us more about that, and how do you see them?
Well, I can see it just it's very simple when you are down there in Northern Cyprus and you see that most of the apartments are empty, and then you see that we have a few properties in almost all the compounds, and some of them have lights on. So that's that's a big thing
Okay.
to actually see that they are occupied. But also we have owners who have been with other companies before and
Mm,
say, well, we got a few really nice bookings last summer, but then nothing happened, and we try to give them uh, bookings all year around. And
mm,
that's a big
mm,
difference if you own a villa in Cyprus and maybe you didn't have any bookings in March before. Now you can get a
mm,
booking in March. Maybe not to the
mm,
same price as in August, but you still get a booking. You can still make some money during low season as well. So I think that is the
mm,
biggest difference that they see.
mm.
Then they just have to accept that the prices are not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a market, right? And I think, when it's a maybe sometimes emotional investment in property, and you have these feelings you talked about, but it is a market. There's so much supply and so much demand, and you do the best to make your property via the listing the most attractive. But when it comes down to it, price is one of the most important factors when booking. And tying it back to the cancellation rate drop that we saw, I think that's real proof that if you price fairly and competitively, then it's not so likely that the guest is going to cancel because they saw a better offer,
Yeah.
and they could cancel with a refund. So, I think that that's quite an important insight that we found.
Well, and we
And
also found that it was really it's really it's a process that you go through with each and every owner, talking about how what they expect, what kind of revenue they want, but also some owners are of the impression that it's better to have like only one, always 7 days minimum bookings, and I try to convince them that the data is saying differently. If you have a villa, maybe you don't want a booking for 3 days, but it could still be very good to have 4 or 5 days bookings because then you can get these long weekends.
mm,
And they are very reluctant in the beginning. I don't know if it's worth it. And we always say, well, it's better to get a booking, get some income during like a Easter weekend in April when it's still not that hot,
mm,
instead of not getting anything. So there are lots of data and algorithms that we use to convince owners to actually try it out. And when they do and give it some time, like 10, 11, 12 months, they're
mm,
actually really happy. So those owners who have
mm.
been with us and have trusted us, they are really happy.
Yes,
Mhm.
amazing. And uh, what would you say? I mean, one of the things that we get asked quite a lot is, it seems that everyone is an expert on their own pricing. And I understand that because you've been often working with the business for many years. But the fact is that markets and dynamics change every year, so much. And it's very hard to keep on top of that unless you're an extreme data nerd. So what would you say to other hosts and property managers who are still maybe hesitant? Can I trust this? I mean, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say you can still get bookings by trusting your gut and your gut feeling, but I don't think that you will generate as many bookings as you could.
Mm,
And the prices are not even that much lower. They are usually very, very logical, very data. If everything is based on data and it's very
mm,
logical to follow. You have some control because you can always go in and change the base rate and check it a bit. We are doing that as well, of course, when we have someone who really wants higher rates or something, then you can go in and change the rates in the dynamic pricing tool.
mm,
So you still have some influence.
yeah.
But in the end, it gives you peace of mind that you didn't miss to put in, there was this national holiday there and I forgot
Mm,
to put
mm,
up the prices. So the stress you skip is worth a lot, I think.
yeah. Yeah, the time saving as well.
The time
And
saving.
I guess that lets you focus on, the things to grow your business that maybe you wouldn't have time for in other cases.
No, if you have
But
50 properties and you have to check each calendar every week, then you don't have much time for anything else.
no, great. But Sandra, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Stick around till the end. There might be a question or two for you. But I think it's really, I always enjoy talking to you. You're very clear about how things are, and hopefully some of the people listening took something away from that. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Atul's just going to give us the reasons. I mean, maybe you need to convince your owners or your boss or yourself, why should I try this and do this? So take us through it, Atul.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why is it essential, right? Especially in today's day and age to use dynamic pricing? First and foremost, as I said, we're trying to get you the best return on your investment. So the tool is perfectly focused on maximizing your revenue, right? So there are multiple ways to achieve the same kind of revenue. You could have high occupancy and low ADRs, like low rental cost for each night, or you could have the opposite. But whatever is the right way to do it, Price Labs is looking at which is the best rate that you can maximize revenue for each day in the future and setting the price according to that. And we do see results of that. On average, we see 20 to 40% more revenue with Price Labs as compared to manual pricing. And from the data as well, we have seen that the revenues have gone up by about 37% for Your.Rentals users. So, yeah, I think it's pretty backed up by numbers.
Mhm.
So, first and foremost, we may help you maximize your revenue. Next, we help you save time, right? Um, as Sandra said, and as we've understood, there's a lot of manual tasks when it comes to setting the prices. So we set prices for the next 1.5 years. So you can be sure that your next high season prices are already in place when you're joining Price Labs, right? When you're activating it. So you don't need to go in and manually do a lot of things. And everything that you're doing manually now is possibly, has some element of guesswork as well, right? So we help you make completely data-based decisions so that you don't have to guess how a certain season is going to be and then price based on instincts. We can use the data and price in the best way. And yes, you can easily scale up because as soon as you add listings and activate the pricing and set the basic parameters, base price, minimum price, and if you wish a maximum price, it will automatically generate the right prices for the next 1.5 years, right? And yes, real-time market data, we're updating the data every day. So it's not a monthly report that's coming up and then we're sort of changing prices slowly. Your prices will be reacting to changes in the market on a daily basis, right? And as we saw in the ADR as well, right? Andrew, you were saying that you were curious about why the ADR was kind of uh, very close to how it was before dynamic pricing. So
Mhm.
my theory is that for the high demand dates when we end up increasing the prices and when for the low demand dates we decrease the prices, the average price still stays almost the same, but you end up getting higher value bookings in high season or high demand periods and lower value bookings in the low season and low demand periods. So even though the ADR remains pretty much the same, you're getting higher occupancies. And this is
Mhm.
what will help you stay ahead of the game in terms of your competition.
Yeah, that was always the thing that I was struggling to figure out why. It's a great explanation, particularly when you think that the cancellation rate can be lower, as proven by our study. Um, Yeah,
Yep.
you win on a few different metrics there.
Mm.
All right, but thanks for the summary there. Really quickly before we get into the Q&A, there are some questions about this, so it's good that we cover it. So if you're already using Your.Rentals or you're thinking about using it, I'll just show you very simply how you activate dynamic pricing. What you can see here is our calendar. I think it's one of the best calendars in the world for a system like ours, but simply click on a date for one of your listings, and in the right sidebar, you'll see that you can select to turn on price labs. In here, you fill in three values, or you can fill in three values. You need to fill in at least a minimum rate. That's a rate that you don't want to sell below. For that rate, you will not get out of bed to let someone in. And then you can also set the base rate, which you can get a recommendation from Price Labs for that if you're new to the business. This is kind of, Atul, correct me if I'm wrong, but the sort of more average sort of rate that you're used to getting.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah.
It's sort of an average for the whole year.
And you can also put in a maximum rate as well. It's not necessary, but if you do it, it will just help the algorithms not overprice the property, even though they shouldn't. But if you know that you will never take a certain rate, you can add that as well, just to get a bit more accuracy. So once you've set those rate limits, you just basically turn it on, and you will see, I will show you on the next slide, that it's been applied. You need to repeat that process for every listing because, of course, each listing is probably going to have slightly different values for those rate settings. Once you've done that, you can see here in the calendar view, we have this little symbol, the arrow up, which tells you that dynamic pricing is active and has been applied for the night in question. As Atul mentioned, we fetch new prices every day, and then we synchronize those with all of the channels that we are connecting you to. So you don't need to do anything with that. And for those who not like Sandra, who only looks at her prices once a month, it sounds like. But if you're looking at your prices and you think, that seems a little bit under, or I want to try a slightly different strategy, you can always override the dynamic pricing rates just by selecting a date or a date range and then setting a custom rate, which you can see in the animation there. So it's that simple. There were some questions I saw about what does it cost. Well, the nice thing is with the way we've implemented this very close partnership with Price Labs, you don't need to go and sign up for a Price Labs account and do that and connect it via API to us. It's actually inside Your.Rentals, and we will not charge you anything extra for this. It's included in our service fee. So for those who know Your.Rentals, we have a transactional model where we charge you for the bookings that we process for you, a percentage, and it's included in the fee because we want you to be successful, and that helps us be successful as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I really want to add on to that and say that that's a big benefit because usually if you want to use Price Labs, we start off with a monthly subscription of about $20 per listing. So, yeah, having no additional charge here, I would really recommend, at least try it out and see the results.
There are other benefits as well. So it's really, really good.
It's good to see we got that right.
Yes.
But yeah, it was, I don't think this has been done before. So we really enjoyed implementing this with Price Labs. Great partnership we have. All right, and if you want more information, we have two resources you can look at. On Academy, Your.Rentals, we've got different training courses, and there is a topic on dynamic pricing if you want to take that. Also, some other interesting courses you can take if you're new to short-term rental management. And of course, in our articles, there's a whole lot of guides on how to do things if you get lost along the way. Okay, so that concludes the presentation part. I'm just going to have a look through. There's a bunch of questions were already answered by our team. I will start with a couple for you, Atul. Firstly,
Mhm.
do you collect data in all worldwide markets and countries?
Yes, we have data for all over the world, all listings from multiple channels. So wherever your listing is, we're going to be able to price it fairly accurately.
Even northern
Mhm.
suburbs, actually. I just need to say that. That's not the normal, not the most normal holiday destination, but we get some really good and reliable data there as well.
Mhm.
Mm.
And wasn't there some announcement Price Labs made about the number of listings it was pricing recently?
Yes, so we've recently hit 500,000 listings worldwide that are being actively priced by us on a daily basis.
And that's not the sample you're drawing from. That's almost everything in the world, but it's amazing traction you guys got. All right, another question for our tool here. How many weeks or months or years in the future can you predict the price?
Yeah, so we automatically send prices for the next 1.5 years, so the next 18 months. Um, and automatically the prices very far out will be slightly higher than they should be so that you don't get any lower priced bookings, things like that. So we're taking care of the prices for the next, 1.5 years.
Mm.
Mhm. Just add anything, Sandra, that you've experienced with these if you need to. Um, and another one, Atul, great to have an expert here. Would you suggest to adjust or recalibrate the minimum and maximum price regularly, or just set them up and let them go?
Right. So the way to do it, if you're purely focused on revenue, maximizing the revenue, is to set your minimum price at the absolute lowest you would be willing to take. Ideally, that should be really close to the cost of one night in your apartment or villa, right? So that's the absolute lowest you're willing to take, and then not set a maximum. So in most cases, we're able to achieve rates sometimes that a lot of owners or property managers thought might not be achievable. So we can leave the maximum blank if that's what you want to achieve, and then we don't need to adjust it unless you see that a lot of rates are hitting the minimum. So for example, if if your listing is not getting any bookings, we would try and drop the price to make sure that it's getting bookings. But if your minimum is not allowing the algorithm to drop the price even further, you'll see a lot of daily rates are consistently at your minimum price.
Yes.
If that's the case, then ideally you should drop your minimum a little so that it allows the algorithm to go a little lower, get you some bookings, and then we can go back to normal prices again.
Have you
Mhm.
seen anything with the base rate there as well? How is the base rate connecting to the minimum price? Because I have done just like you said, and sometimes I think I even have to change the base rate to actually get a change.
Mm,
Yes. So we suggest about a 25 to 30% gap between your base and minimum so that the algorithm has space to move up and down. Otherwise, it can get stuck at your minimum price, especially during the low seasons.
mm.
So the base rate
That,
should be 25% higher than the minimum price.
yeah.
Good.
And I think an interesting topic is not really part of this webinar, but remember that, there's a value to having a guest come and stay, have a great experience, and give you a 5-star or 10-star review, depending on the platform. I think a lot of people forget that. So having, sometimes your sort of net income from a booking might not make you that excited, but if you're doing well on the operation side, the 5-star review or the 10-star review for booking.com is worth money because it does help you get better performance in those channels as well. So bear it in mind. There's some advice that we give to some of our customers. I know some are using that very aggressively when they're bringing new listings to the market as well. All right, we have a few minutes, a few more questions. Question for you, Sandra. Would you suggest or recommend investing in the Northern Cyprus real estate market?
Oh, well, personally, not, no. But it depends a bit on what you want. You can still get a really, really nice property with a sea view for a reasonable price. And as long as you don't expect the highest revenue, but have more like you want to rent it out to be able to keep the property, covering costs and stuff like that, and maybe have a little extra on top of it, I think it is definitely worth to invest. If you are trying to make big money, I think you should wait a bit. Since Northern Cyprus has been growing so quick, they have some growing pains right now. Lots of regulations are changing. I would wait a bit if you want to make big money. But if you're out or if you are looking for a really nice property with a sea view that you would not be able to afford in Spain, and you are okay with covering your costs, then definitely yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Fantastic. Good balanced answer. A question from Venetia. Can you also create your own target comp set on top of your selection? Atul, this is probably something more advanced if you have your own Price Labs account. Of course, you're going to get some more advanced features in there. Can you create your own comp set of known competitors?
Yes, you can. And yeah, with your own Price Labs account, it's possible to do that and possible to see their prices versus your prices. But we would still use the neighborhood to price your listings because we primarily use occupancy and demand data, and that's better to get from an entire neighborhood of a few hundred listings than your 10 or 15 competitors who you think are, the best to compare prices with. So
Mhm.
because we don't do price matching and just set you at a price that your competitors are at, we would still use the neighborhood for pricing.
Mhm. Good answer. All right, one final one. We can probably clear something up here. Why can't we add perks like parking, pool, etc. that would help a lot? And maybe the answer there is, of course, in the Your.Rentals listing builder and editor, you will add parking, swimming pool, other amenities and things like that. What do you consider? What is it that Your.Rentals provides you at all, apart from the location, that you use to sort of categorize a property to set prices?
Right. So in terms of setting prices, we get all of the historical data from your rentals as well. So what prices have you been pricing it at? What are your future prices set up currently? And that's one of the ways we come up with the initial base price recommendation when you try to connect um, your listing in your rentals to price labs. We look at your historical as well as your future prices and say that if you want to continue with a similar pricing, just adding Price Labs intelligence to it, this is what your base price could be, right? So we use all of that data, and based on that, we're able to understand where you stand in the market. Is yours a premium property that you've been pricing it at where it's more expensive than most of the market around you? Or is it an economy level listing that is priced cheaper than most of the market around you, right? So we're able to understand that. So understand how luxurious or average or below average your listing is, and then we're able to adapt the pricing to those attributes as well.
Fantastic. There are some other very specific questions that you're welcome to reach out to your rental support team if we haven't answered it. But I think we're out of time. So I want to once again thank the two panelists here, Atul from Price Labs and Sandra from Blue Ocean Rentals. It's great chatting with you. I could do this all day, but it's 5 o'clock and the kids are hungry, so it's probably time to get off. But thanks a lot. It's been really good fun. I hope for everyone listening and who watches the recording of this that you learned something. And please reach out if you need any more information to Your.Rentals. We're happy to have a chat and get you set up. Thanks again, guys.
Yep.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.